Your mother? Larry's face went pale. The tweed suit? Right. We're going to need a bigger disco ball. Chapter 32. The Matriarch Returns. The phone call to Martha Wood went about as expected. There was a long silence, a sharp intake of breath, and then a series of questions about Jack's credit score and his long-term investment plan. She's coming back, isn't she? Jack asked, watching Janet hang up the phone. She'll be here by Friday, Janet replied, and she's bringing Aunt Louise. Aunt Louise is like my mother, but with a magnifying glass and a lack of filter. The arrival of the Wood sisters turned apartment 201 into a battlefield of etiquette. Martha wanted a traditional church wedding back in their hometown. Jack wanted the beach. Aunt Louise wanted to know why Cindy wasn't married yet. Janet, darling, Martha said, surveying the living room. A beach wedding? In the sand? People will have gritty shoes. It's unhygienic. It's romantic, Mother, Janet countered. It's where Jack proposed. It's where we live. Jack took Martha's hand, looking her straight in the eye. Mrs. Wood, I know I'm not a banker or a lawyer. I'm a chef. But I promise you, when Janet walks down that aisle, whether it's made of carpet or sand, she'll be the happiest woman in the world. Because I love her more than life itself. Martha looked at Jack, and for the first time, the hardness in her eyes softened. She didn't say anything, but she didn't mention the church again. Chapter 33. The Cindy Conundrum. While the apartment was a whirlwind of planning and family, Cindy was unusually quiet. She went to work early, came home late, and spent a lot of time staring at her avocado plant. Jack found her on the balcony one evening, watching the fog roll in. Hey, Blondie, you've been awfully quiet lately. Are you worried Aunt Louise is going to ask about your dating life again? Cindy forced a small smile. No, I was just thinking. After you and Janet get married, what happens to 201? Are you guys going to find a house? Am I going to have to find new roommates? The reality of the situation hit Jack like a cold wave. In his excitement, he hadn't fully considered the logistics of their three-way friendship. Cindy, listen to me, Jack said, his voice firm. We aren't leaving you. We're family. We'll figure something out. Maybe we find a bigger place. Or maybe we just stay here and turn the pantry into my office. But you aren't going anywhere. But it'll be different, Jack, Cindy whispered. It won't be Three's company anymore. It'll be Two's company and a third wheel. Never, Jack promised, pulling her into a hug. You're the glue, Cindy. Without you, we're just two people who argue about the laundry. You're the one who makes this home. Chapter 34. The Bachelor Party. Larry style. Larry Dallas insisted that Jack needed a proper send-off. This resulted in a night that Jack would spend the next decade trying to forget. It began at the Regal Beagle with a round of Tripper specials, a drink Larry invented that tasted like gasoline and maraschino cherries, and ended with them trying to rent a mechanical bull from a local country bar. Larry, I'm a chef, Jack yelled as he narrowly avoided being tossed into a pile of sawdust. I need my hands for the wedding cake. Relax, Jackie. It's about the adventure, Larry shouted, wearing a cowboy hat that was twice as big as his head. The night took a dramatic turn when they ran into Max the Mountain of a Man from the beginning of their story. Max had moved back to Santa Monica after things went south in San Francisco. Tripper, Max growled, blocking the exit. I heard you're getting hitched to the florist. Jack felt the old familiar panic rising. But then, he looked at Max and saw that the man wasn't angry. He looked lonely. I am Max, Jack said, standing his ground. And she's the best thing that ever happened to me. Max nodded slowly. Good. You're a lucky man. Treat her right, or I'll come back and finish what I started at the funeral home. Jack laughed, a genuine, relieved laugh. Deal, Max, deal. Chapter 35. The Vows Under the Ferris Wheel. The wedding day arrived with a perfect, cloudless sky. Mr. Furley was the usher, wearing a tuxedo that was undeniably pink but somehow worked. Larry was the best man, holding the rings and looking surprisingly nervous. Cindy was the maid of honor, looking radiant in a pale yellow dress that matched the morning sun. When Janet appeared at the top of the stairs, the world went silent for Jack. She was wearing a simple lace dress, her hair flowing down her back just like the first day he saw her at the bar. But now, she wasn't just a beautiful girl in a peekaboo sweater. She was his life. They stood together on the sand, the sound of the Pacific providing a rhythmic accompaniment to their vows. I, Jack Tripper, take you, Janet Wood, to be my wife, Jack said, his voice trembling with emotion. I promise to always knock before entering your heart, to never let the fire go out in our kitchen, and to always remember that home is wherever you are. Janet smiled through her tears. I, Janet Wood, take you, Jack Tripper, to be my husband. I promise to always laugh at your jokes, even the bad ones, to keep our garden blooming, and to always cherish the unconventional life we've built together. As they kissed, the crowd erupted in cheers. The Pacific Park Ferris wheel began to turn, its neon lights flickering in the gathering dusk. Chapter 36. The First Anniversary and the Silver Anchor's Expansion. A year had passed since the sand of Santa Monica Beach had been brushed from their wedding clothes. The Silver Anchor had not only been rebuilt, it had become the crown jewel of Malibu, with Jack now serving as the executive chef. He had a brigade of cooks under him, but his heart remained in the small kitchen of apartment 201, where he still experimented with new recipes while Cindy sang off-key in the shower. Their first anniversary was a quiet affair, or it was meant to be. Jack had planned a private dinner on the balcony, but Larry, true to form, had accidentally invited half the patrons of the Regal Beagle. "It's a celebration of love, Jackie," Larry shouted, handing out hors d'oeuvres he'd liberated from a nearby catering gig. "The neighborhood needs this." Janet, wearing a silk dress that shimmered like the Pacific at dusk, leaned into Jack's side. "I guess we're sharing our anniversary with 60 strangers. As long as I'm sharing it with you, I don't care if the whole city shows up," Jack whispered, kissing her temple. But beneath the celebration, a new letter sat on the coffee table. It was from a major restaurant group in San Francisco. They wanted Jack to open a signature restaurant in the city, a career move that would place him among the culinary elite. Chapter 37. Cindy's Choice. As Jack and Janet wrestled with the prospect of leaving Santa Monica, Cindy was facing her own crossroad. She had been promoted to senior secretary at her firm, and for the first time, she was being courted by a rival agency in Beverly Hills. More importantly, she had met someone. His name was Toby, a landscape architect who was as clumsy as she was. Their first date had resulted in 2 broken wine glasses and a slightly bruised toe, but Toby didn't care. He saw the gold in Cindy's heart. "Jack, Toby asked me to move in with him," Cindy confessed one night, her voice barely a whisper. The silence in the living room was deafening. Jack and Janet looked at each other, the reality of their triad shifting once again. "Is that what you want, Cindy?" Janet asked, taking her hand. "I love him, Janet. And I love it here. But I think I'm ready to have a door that's just mine." "And his?" Jack felt a lump in his throat. He realized that the lovable space was finally outgrowing its current face. "Then you go, Cindy. You go and you break as many wine glasses as you need to. But remember, the key to 201 will always be in your pocket." Chapter 38. The Unexpected Guest. Just as the trio began to prepare for their separate futures, a ghost from Jack's past appeared literally. A man named Arthur Tripper, Jack's estranged father, arrived at the door. He was a retired naval cook, a man of few words, and a mountain of regrets. "I heard my boy was the best chef in California," Arthur said, his eyes scanning the apartment with a mix of pride and sadness. "I wanted to see it for myself." The tension in the apartment was palpable. But Janet, ever the peacemaker, insisted on a family dinner. As Jack cooked for the man who had taught him his first basic stir-fry, the walls between them began to crumble. They talked about the salt and the sea, and the hard lessons learned in the heat of a galley kitchen. "I wasn't a good father, Jack," Arthur admitted over dessert. "But I'm glad you found what I couldn't. A home that doesn't sail away." Chapter 39. The Storm of 1979. As the decade drew to a close, a massive winter storm hit the California coast. The winds howled through the palms, and the waves threatened to swallow the Santa Monica Pier. In apartment 201, the power had gone out, leaving the roommates and Toby, who was visiting, huddled around a collection of Janet's scented candles. The literal storm was nothing compared to the metaphorical one. Janet had a secret she had been keeping for 3 weeks. "Jack," she said, her voice steady despite the thunder shaking the windows. "I don't think we can go to San Francisco." "Why not?" "The contract is perfect, Janet. We could have everything." "We already have everything," she said, taking his hand and placing it over her stomach. Jack froze. The world seemed to stop spinning. The storm outside faded into a distant murmur. "A baby? We're having a baby?" Cindy squealed and threw her arms around them, knocking over a vase in the process. Larry, who had been hiding in the hallway to avoid the rain, burst in with a bottle of champagne he'd been saving for a rainy day. "A tripper! A little Jack or a little Janet?" Larry shouted. "I'm going to be the godfather. I've already got the silk diapers picked out." Chapter 40. The Future of 201. The decision was made. They wouldn't go to San Francisco. Jack took a partnership at the Silver Anchor, allowing him to stay in the city he loved. Cindy and Toby moved to a small bungalow in Venice, only 10 minutes away. As for apartment 201, it underwent a transformation. The second bedroom was painted a soft seafoam green, filled with a crib and a rocking chair. Furley, surprisingly moved by the news, had waived the rent increase, claiming he didn't want the kid to grow up in a slum.